Woo-hoo-hoo. And we're live once again on another Tuesday, and I have a special guest and friend in the house. I have Niraj. I'm so excited that you're here today, Niraj, and he's a repeat performance because I just love Niraj. He's just awesome. So, Niraj, before we get stuck in with our topic, can you please just introduce people to who you are and what you do, and then we'll get stuck in.
Hi, everybody. I'm Niraj. People approach me when I want to close more deals. And when I spend time with them, I realize closing deals is never a problem. The problem is most people can't open deals. They don't know how to overcome objections. They don't understand negotiation. What I do is I simply help them and show them easy and proven ways to do that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. So, our topic today is just something I find so fascinating. So, Niraj, you are a top voice on LinkedIn for sales. And so, we thought this would be an awesome topic. Being a top voice on LinkedIn, how do you get there? What's it all about? There's, a new kid in town coming up with a voice. It's not a top voice, it's a community voice. And just, I wanted to know how this all works. So, Niraj, can you start off by sort of just telling us the story about how you even got there?
Well, I struggled on LinkedIn for a long time. Part of it was my own fault because I was trying to sell my books, trying to sell my coaching. I kind of figured it's a good platform to sell yourself. Of course, it is to a certain extent, but not all the time. And I've been working for quite some time. I wasn't quite getting the traction or the reaction I wanted. And I went through a very traumatic divorce and had to move back home with my parents. Getting divorced for anyone who's gone through it is a truly unbearable experience. And then, of course, living alone in lockdown straight after that made things worse. I don't cope well by myself. I cope well with other people. I cope well with family and friends. I didn't cope by myself. My health got worse. My parents said, look, put everything in storage, come back home for a few months. And that's what I did. And I wrote about the shame of being a grown man, having to kind of, you expect to do so well in life. You don't expect life will hit you that hard. And you're unable to cope. And you have to leave countries, fly from England, my home of 29 years, and go live with my parents in a very small working class town in Northern Ireland. So it was a fairly big shock. And what surprised me was when talking about this, two things happened. First of all, people were surprised by my authenticity and my vulnerability because nobody was really talking about that back in 2020, certainly not men. And second of all, I started to build a LinkedIn following just by talking about my experiences. And also, people started to reach out to me, not just publicly, but privately to say, you know what, I've been divorced. Don't worry about it. You know what? I had to move in with my parents when I was in my 40s. Don't worry about it. And the number, because you always think you're the only person fighting something. And on LinkedIn, I realized I wasn't. There's a whole amazing tribe of people who have been through what I've been through. And they're incredibly supportive and surprisingly kind. And that was lovely to hear. So that was how my LinkedIn journey went from just struggling and getting one or two, new connections a day to getting a few thousand and then 5,000 and then 7,000 and then 9,000. And I was growing really quickly. And then once I started talking about online dating, all of a sudden the whole world became fascinated by it. But I was comparing my online dating experiences to business as much as possible and talking about the difficulty of being stood up, the difficulty of trying to find love again, the difficulty of not rushing in. And relating that to business meant my following went to almost 17,000 in a year. And that's when LinkedIn approached me and told me about the Top Voice Award.
Wow. Wow. That's a great story. That's a great story. And so they reach out to you. Do they say you're nominated and you'll hear back? Like what exactly happens?
Well, what happened was they approached me literally a few days before it happened and told me why. I said, this is fantastic, but what are the reasons why? I'm truly honored. But I know so many people who are way better than me, who've got followers much bigger than mine, who've been on LinkedIn much longer than I have. What are the reasons I'm being given this? And it was because I was giving tons of value to people. I was leading from the heart. I was showing kindness to others. And also, despite everything I'd been through, I was still being kind to people. I was still helping other people. And that's really important because when life's very difficult and doesn't go the way you plan it, it's very easy just to focus on you. But I kept focusing on other people. I kept doing my charity work. I kept giving people shout outs. I kept supporting others who were going through tough times, regardless of what I was going through. And I think that's very important.
I agree. I agree. And so you get your top voice award. Now, you said 10 people. So there's many different categories, correct? So it's not so there's many different categories that people can receive a top voice for. Yours was specifically for sales. And
Correct.
so is there other 10 people make it for that category per year? What are sort of the numbers?
Yeah, they choose 10 people from the world. So two were in the UK, myself and Hannah Ajikawa, she's brilliant. And then 8 were chosen throughout North America. So, and I was looking at these names going, wow. I mean, these people were pretty amazing. And yeah, I was incredibly honored that it happened to me. But I did feel a bit guilty initially, thinking there are people way better than me. There are people more qualified than me. And you kind of feel a bit embarrassed thinking, oh my God, what's expected of me now as well?
I can see that because all of a sudden it's like you're like, boom, the lights go on and it's like influencer, like you're just like, oh no, now I'm going to be doing Pepsi ads or something, you're just like, ah. So, so you get the badge. Do you get an award? Like, do you get a certificate? Does anything come in the mail? Some
Nope, nothing at
swag?
all. With the Salesforce, it was different. Salesforce 3 years in a row gave me a top sales influencer, and it was lovely because I had trophies, I had certificates, I got swag, I spoke at their events. With LinkedIn, I said, look, with Salesforce, it's been great. Can I speak, at your conferences? Can we do internal events together? Can we do this? Can we do that? No, which I think is a missed opportunity because I know so many people who would love to do LinkedIn events internally and would like to get involved in those kind of programs. But LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft. They're a multi-billion pound company. So when you want to make suggestions internally, it has to go through so many layers and so many people. I mean, it really is incredible. Absolutely incredible.
I'm actually really surprised that I would think that you would be part of some sort of like inner circle in terms of, work with us, give us some feedback, like you'd be kind of invited for beta programs or it's something along that line. So I'm really surprised. You're right, missed opportunity.
Completely missed opportunity, I feel.
Hmm, hmm. So the other thing that I noticed, and this is, I don't want this to come across as a criticism to LinkedIn, but I find it very interesting. Let's just use that word. Very interesting that when I go to your profile and I click on your top voice badge, I go to a LinkedIn help article. Like it gives just like the smallest little blurb about you. It started down at the bottom of the screen. It was on my phone, so maybe it's different on desktop. And then it was like, to learn more, click this button, click this text. And I went to a help article and I thought, why aren't I not going to the article where you were featured so I know why, what did LinkedIn have to say to you? And I only found that information by doing a Google search. And I used to be the Google goddess. So that's how I found it. And I just went, this is crazy. I should be able to find all the other top voices for your category, maybe some other categories, other people for the year, because I would think LinkedIn would encourage me to want to learn about other top voices, and I should be following them so that I can learn better on the platform. So again, a missed opportunity to just go to a help article.
Yes, I think they did a big post promoting me when it came out, and nothing since. So if you didn't see that article, it's not like they repeat it or they repurpose it or repost it at all. So again, it gave people the opportunity to talk to us, to get to know us, to profile us. All those opportunities could have been done. And I certainly recommended them. I've no doubt some of the other voices did as well, because we spoke about it. Wouldn't it be great if we could do an event together? But no, nothing came of that, unfortunately, at all.
Hmm. That's really interesting. Very interesting. LinkedIn, make a note. This is a wasted opportunity. Get some people, get a think tank of get all those top voices together. They'll give you some ideas. So that would be good. So I'm imagining that with every good thing, there's also negatives. So has there been any negatives with being the top voice in sales?
There's a lot of people who were better known than me, and one or two of them felt very angry that I got the award and they didn't. And a few of them block you on LinkedIn. That's unfortunate, but that's the nature of winning any award, I think, as well. There are quite a few people who approach me for free, thinking, now you're very successful. Can you work for free for us? It's an award. There's no cash prize. Okay. It's very important to understand this. Nobody offered me any influencer deals. I didn't get any commercials. Gary Vaynerchuk didn't call me. None of the opportunities I wanted. Oprah did not invite me to be in Oprah's podcast. None of the opportunities I wanted to happen have happened, just to be clear. It's very important to understand that.
I love that. That's funny. That's funny. And then you wrote a book. So you wrote a book about sales. And by the way, I must say, I absolutely love your book. And one of the reasons why I especially love your book is excellent. It is a game changer to help with the sales mindset. And I love that the topic, because that is probably one of my biggest drags is I have huge issues with sales, me and like 60 million of my friends. So I'm not alone in this. But what I especially liked about your book, Niraj, was that you blended so much of your own voice, your personal story, which blended in, and it made it such an easy read. It wasn't like a do this to, it wasn't like a manual, like a sales manual, like do this and you'll do stuff. It was like you took your story and you weaved it throughout the book as a tapestry. So where does your book fit in with the top voice? Did you do the book before, after, during? Like, is there any sort of...
The book had no relation to the top voice at all, I'm afraid. It had nothing to do with it whatsoever. I mean, I'm really proud of the first book. It created opportunities for me that were wonderful. It gave me the credibility in a very crowded market, which is why it's good to write a book that people like. But that's about as far as it goes. You don't get, unless you happen to write a book that's truly exceptional, or a book that's like really just a breakout success. 99% of authors don't really make it big. They don't. You have to sell some in the region of about 50,000 copies to be considered successful or to make a living as an author. And I didn't even come close to that. I mean, I did better than the average of 50 copies a year, which a self-publisher will make. But the first book was 5,000 copies. The second book was only 800. And the third book, which came out at Christmas, that's done about 1,400 copies so far. So that's good. But it's not 50,000 or 100,000 or a multi-million bestseller. So it's a very different game I'm playing. And it's important people understand that, because everybody writes a book thinking it's going to be, or hoping it'll be a great success. But it's never that simple. In fact, selling a book is just as hard as writing a book, which is why most books don't sell, because people will do a Facebook post or a LinkedIn post. And that's pretty much all they do. But people like Simon Alexander Ong and Daniel Disney and myself and Alison Edgar were promoting it. We have to, because that's how you sell a book and keep it front of people's mind.
I love that. And I believe that for the most part, your book is really, it's adding to your credibility. It's like, it's truly kind of a little bit of a lead magnet. It's just a higher level up. It's much more professional because people can, they can go get it on Amazon. They can get a hard copy. They can get the soft copy, and you're protected. Whereas like a PDF on your website, you're never protected. But I see writing a book is really just something that adds to your credibility and your prestige and making you a thought leader. If you have a book, I think it just adds more to who you are.
Oh, I recommend everybody writes a book. It reminds me of the Jim Rohn saying, which is fantastic. Try to become a millionaire. Not so you can have $1 million, but so you can learn the skills needed to become one. And the exact same process goes with doing a podcast, with doing a LinkedIn Live, with doing a book. Don't do it to become famous or to become rich. You do it because the skills you learn will be incredible. You will learn so much from writing a book. I mean, it really is quite an incredible process. And it's only, I think, the third time where I really think I got it right. But I had to have a team of people around me. I had to have a designer, an editor, a deputy editor, a copywriter, all these teams of people behind you. It's really important to do that. But I encourage people to always try new things, no matter how much it scares you, because that is how you learn and that is how you grow.
That's beautiful. And it's so true. It literally does take a village to write a book. And I think I remember when John Asperian wrote his book, he actually wrote a post of his village and he identified all the different people and all the pieces. And quite frankly, when I read that post, I went, oh, I think I'll have to rethink this whole book writing thing. Cause you don't just slap it up and, you're done. There's a lot of work that goes into it, even down to doing your cover. So that's amazing. And I see your book in the background there. So it's awesome. Everybody, I suggest you go take a look at all of Niraj's books on Amazon. So another question about the top voice. So once you earn the top voice, is it for that 1 year only and then it kind of like fades away? Do you have to re-earn it each following year to keep it on your profile? What's the logistics of that?
Well, the nice thing about the top voice, and LinkedIn only did this very recently, they have automatically put it in my profile. So I have no say over what it leads to. I think when you clicked on it, it led to a LinkedIn help article. I have no say over that. LinkedIn did that automatically. And I'm really grateful they did. So that stays, so everybody knows I'm a LinkedIn top voice. Officially, it lasted a year, but they give it to me again. And this time it's automatically on my profile. So I'm accepting that. that's,
Nice,
that's all I can say.
nice. So probably it's like once you earn it, and I'm just making this up, but I'm assuming that once you earn it, as long as you kind of meet LinkedIn standards, like, you're continuing to post content and you engage with your network. And there's probably like a checklist of like, you always are such a nice person anyways, but as long as you're sort of meeting those guidelines and continuing to add value to the LinkedIn community, I can't see I would think that just qualifies you to keep it. You've already earned it, so you should be able to just maintain it. So that would make
Yeah, I mean, if
sense.
you behave inappropriately, LinkedIn will take stuff away from you. Of course it does. You've seen that.
Yep.
They can suspend you, as you know yourself, using language you didn't think was bad.
Like
You
chuffed.
remember you got suspended for using slang. Whoa, really? So these things do happen. But, I always say when you come from a place of serving, when you come from a place of trying to support other people and help other people and also give value at the same time, and you show up every day. That's really important. Showing up every single day, especially days you don't feel like it. You don't have to post every day. That's not important. But showing up every day is important. And if you combine all those things together, you won't go too far wrong. I'm not going to say you're going to make it and become truly successful, but you'll do fairly well on LinkedIn if you do those things.
I like that. And that's probably why you earned the reward. The award is that you have that attitude with everything that you do. So I think it's good. I think it's
Thank you.
good. So shall we hop over and see some of our buddies in the
Oh
comments
yeah,
here?
of course. Love
So
to. Love to, love
so
to.
we always have Jeff Young sitting in the
Hey,
front
Jeff.
row, looking forward to hearing two LinkedIn top voices. I'm not one. I just talk a lot. I just talk a lot on the platform,
Good to
but
see you, Jeff. Jeff's fantastic.
he is. And he, again, adds so much lovely value, so much lovely value. So yeah, we're talking about relationship building and a following on LinkedIn. Mary Wu says, did I get here before Jeff this week? Never. He's always in the front row, Mary. Okay, that's great. That's great. Okay. Let's see. We have there's a lot of chatting that goes on back and forth in the comments. We've got John Aspirian here. Great to see you both. Niraj is the man. Niraj is the
Thank
man.
you. We both know John very well. We're part of Espresso Plus, and John is my coach. It has been for almost a year now. So John was a big part of my third book because I was asking him advice. He goes, Niraj, here's my team. And he just gave me access to his team who I hired. And that saved me so much time. And that's why I always say to people on LinkedIn, build great relationships, but also surround yourself with good people. Because I could have spent easily 2 to 3 months just interviewing people and trying to, okay, who's a good designer? Who's a good
Mm.
But with John, it was like, within half an hour I had it, and that makes a huge difference. It saves a tremendous amount of time as well.
That's true. That's true. And it is nice to, almost have in the day we used to call it a Rolodex where it's like you have your list of like, all these different people, but it's also really nice to like, if you're looking for a copywriter, you're looking for somebody to design your book cover or whatever, go to your network. These are, it's not always about sharing your value to your network. Sometimes just tap into your network for the expertise of whatever you need to know. Just go to your network and ask them. So I think that's a brilliant tip. That's a brilliant tip. We have Marcia. Hello. Class is in session. I love this. I love this. Authenticity. Yes, you are human. You are blessed to have such wonderful parents. So let's talk about your parents for a bit, because you actually just wrote like a lovely post about your mom. So can you just share that with us, Niraj?
Yeah, certainly. Mom was 77 years old at the weekend. I did a brief birthday post just about the weekend ups and downs. And I talked about, she's a perfect example of someone who's had a very difficult life. When she came to this country, her mother died young from cancer, and losing a parent when you're a child is incredibly traumatic and difficult. I mean, kids handle these things amazingly, but it's still traumatic. And then years later, the father that she loved and adored, she found out she was adopted. That wasn't her real father. And then he died young from Parkinson's disease. And then when she was in the early 1980s, she got a coloscopy bag. So part of her intestine was removed, and she had a coloscopy bag. Now that's very common now, but 40 years ago it wasn't. So she had a lot of health problems over the years and really struggled. But despite all this, she kept working as a physiotherapist and helping children with learning difficulties. She dedicated her life towards that. And she dedicated her life towards supporting my father, who got an MBE in 2014 from Prince Charles at Buckingham Palace for his charity work, which in all fairness, Mum was a big part of. But Mum's the quiet person behind the scenes, doesn't want any attention, whereas my father is a person at the front who loves the attention. So, but she continues to lead with kindness, and I love that. And even though now she's retired, she still helps my non-verbal 11-year-old nephew who can't speak. She gets involved heavily in supporting autism and children with learning difficulties and raising money for girls' schools in India. I mean, she still does all that work. And she's 5'1", petite, skinny, the only skinny member of our entire family. but she continues to lead from the heart. And it's a great example because people often think to show kindness in life, you have to have a good life. And that's not true at all. I often find that the kindest people in the world are those who've really been through pretty rough times, but have just come out with it the right way, with the right attitude.
I love that. Oh, that is so true. And, I think that if you want to kind of see the strength of somebody, like Marcia is saying, it's about your parents. Like your parents can have such a wonderful influence on you. And obviously, your parents did. They were there for you when you needed help. You're there to help them now that they're older and you're in a good position in life. But you just slipped something past about your dad. So I just want to catch that because I'm always honored when I have people who have some sort of tie to royalty, even just meeting the king, the queen, whatever. Now I guess we have to refer to the king because the queen's gone. But you just said your dad. Now, what was the award he won? Because Americans were not familiar with a lot of these terms.
Well, initially in 2010, 2011, roughly, he got an award for Prince Charles because Prince Charles was head of a charity called Urbana in India, and that was fundraising for them for about a decade. So he got that award there, but that was it. And then 3 years later, he ends up meeting him again at Buckingham Palace. And it's quite interesting because at Buckingham Palace, you're told, depending on the award you get, of course, my father's was the MBE. You accept your award, you don't say a word, you leave. No selfies are allowed. They're quite strict. And there's obviously an official photographer taking photographs. So he couldn't even say at the time, Prince Charles, good to see you again. He just went, thank you, and he left. So that was it. But at the same time, it was quite an honor for our family for him to achieve that. And he got it for his charity work mainly. And he also got it because, doctors work 9 to 5. And back when he was growing up, doctors were heavy smokers. They finished work at 5:30. You went to the pub, you played golf the weekend. There wasn't really, now GPs tend to work and doctors work much longer hours. But back then it was very different. And he often worked weekends and spent his time preparing families for the fact, look, your mother has cancer. And there are services to help women who have cancer. But back then there was no services helping the husbands or the partners of someone who had cancer or the children of people who had cancer, and said, okay, here is how we have to try and deal with this matter. And he did that all voluntarily. He did that. And I didn't quite understand as a kid because he was never there. And because he's that generation of immigrant, he doesn't explain himself. He doesn't communicate. He doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve, doesn't say I love you, doesn't do any of that kind of stuff. So as a kid, it made no sense. Why not spending time with the family for? But of course, now as an adult, I'm totally cool about it. And I'm so glad he did it because I get it. But as a child, you don't get it. As a child, you need to know reasons why. You're so curious. But he never explained that to me at all.
That's amazing. And can you just say, what does MBE stand for? MBE?
Member of the British Empire, I believe.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's not quite being like knighted or something, but it's kind of being someone distinguished. So to speak.
When he got the award, I wasn't there because only 2 family members were allowed. So it was, he took my mum and he had the choice of taking me my wife or my daughter. And I said, well, look, I should go. I'm the eldest. My wife at the time, she was saying, no, I should go. I'm elegant. I'm beautiful. I'll wear a sari. I'll make the whole thing look glamorous. And so my daughter called my father and said, look, mom and dad are arguing. Why don't you take me? I'm the first grandchild. And so they did. So that was it. I had no say in it. I wasn't even there. I had to hear it from other people what went on. So yeah, that was it.
Oh, how wonderful. Oh, wonderful. I love that story. That is a terrific story. That is a terrific story. Okay, back to some of our comments. Niraj is proof that nice guys do not finish last.
Oh,
Oh,
thank you so much. What a lovely thing to say, Jeff.
he is absolutely lovely. The wonderful Anna Brovington. I think it is so important to share these stories as everyone thinks people have popularity overnight and have no hardships. But it's so good to hear behind the scenes. I agree 100% because I think we think, oh, top voice, it's somebody who just kind of waltzes in, they have 60 gazillion followers and but it's like, no, I love that it was a mixture of thought leadership and personal posts. I'm sure it's also a lot about engaging with your network because I know there's a lot of people, we won't name them, but there's a lot of people who just shout. They just shout out to people on LinkedIn and never engage. And I know personally, Niraj, I met you during we met during COVID. We met during Clubhouse. We used to do the Clubhouse rooms together.
Right.
And I loved how you facilitated the rooms and you just kept everyone nicely moving along, feeling seen when we were all just audio. You had that host mentality.
Yeah, I think it's about making people feel comfortable. And also, I really miss not being able to do public speaking in lockdown. So when Clubhouse came about, I had adopted it very early, and I thought, you know what, I can't speak. There's no speaking opportunities, but I've spent the last 2 years of my life building this skill and also running my own sales events, and as well. I don't want to lose that skill that I've been building towards, and also invested a lot of money in. So I made a decision every single day, 7 days a week, I was going to be on Clubhouse. And I was going to be speaking. And the first month, you're in the audience, you're trying to find where you fit in. And in all fairness, I thought I'd be talking about sales. That's why I joined it. But the sales rooms were a bit icky and they had too much male testosterone. And a lot of them I didn't find them very generous. I felt they were like, this is how things are done kind of thing. Whereas the LinkedIn rooms were wonderful. And I find myself surrounded with people way, way smarter than me, with bigger followers than me. They wrote better content than me. And I was just like a sponge. I mean, I absorbed it and I asked questions. And after a few months, I think it was Liam Dermody, he put me in charge of the room one day. I'm like, no, don't do that. Andy Foote was there. I'm like, oh my God, I look so stupid. And all these really good people, Leah Turner and Ariel Lee. I'm like, oh God. But it's like anything. The first few times I did it, I wasn't great. I practiced and I showed up and I'm prepared to make mistakes. I think that's very important. You got to put your ego to the side and say, okay, I'm prepared to learn here. And when I joined that room, I can tell you in Liam's group, I was easily the worst. By a mile, there was no comparison. But I showed up every day. I showed up, I gave value, I got value, and I got better and better and better. And I did Clubhouse solid for the best part of 8 months. I mean, I really did. You show up every single day, 7 days a week for 8 months, and you ask a ton of questions, and you put your ego aside, and you jump in the deep end. And by the way, it is scary. You will become better. You really will. It's impossible not to. So it meant that a few months later, when I joined your room with Lauren and Sarah, I was in my element and I was really enjoying it. I was quite laid back and I kind of had a better idea of what I wanted to do. And I think that's why I enjoyed our room so much as well.
I agree. I agree. And look how far you went after that, because this year, was it this year or last year that you did your TED Talk, which
Oh,
is
yeah,
like an
last
amazing thing.
year. Oh, that was amazing. So again, anytime you do anything new or scary, because I always recommend people do new things. Surround yourself with smart people. That's very important, but also hire smart people. I hired a TEDx coach, which is very important. But also, John Asperian, my own coach, I hired him first. I said, what do you think of this? And he goes, I like this, change that. And again, he gave his opinion. And you need to have smart people giving you really good advice who have your best interest at heart. And if people don't give you your advice, pay them. And they will give you their advice, you know. And that's what I did. And I really went to town. And also, the few days before the TED Talk, everybody was just there and they turned up briefly and left. I stood on the stage. I
Mm.
visualized the cameras in front of me and to the side. I imagined my speech. I practiced walking on it. I mean, I really went to town on it. And again, it's all practice, practice. It's none of these are genius skills. None of these are things I'm inherently born with. None of them. I have to develop all these from scratch. But most of it is just practice and showing up. And I always say to people, just do it. Don't procrastinate. Just get it done, because it's amazing how much you can achieve when you just jump in the deep end and try new things.
Oh, I love that. Oh, whew. And I must say, I watched your TED Talk on YouTube, and it was just like, oh, I was just cheering, cheering, cheering from my chair. It was just like, yay, you know. And I think so many of us have that dream, that goal of wanting to do a TED Talk. And I love that. I love your advice of going out and standing on that stage and just, you know, owning that, grounding yourself in it. So that's
Absolutely. And
absolutely
for those of
brilliant.
you who want to do a TED Talk, and people are listening, if you want to do a TED Talk, attend a TEDx event
Mm.
and promote it on LinkedIn. That's what I did the first time I went to a TED Talk. I bought the tickets. I didn't ask for a freebie. I bought the tickets. I drove 2 hours to the venue. Beforehand, I promoted it on LinkedIn. While I was there, I promoted the speakers on Instagram, again, for free. And then the day after, I promoted the event on LinkedIn. And again, I asked for nothing. And guess what? That got the attention of the people who are thinking of doing my actual TED Talk itself. Because people see your generosity and they see your kindness. That's not why I did it. I just did it because, you know, I was new to Northern Ireland. I wanted to support these people who I didn't really know, but also it's just a good thing to do. And well, I want to sound too cheesy, the good you do in the world always comes back to you. It may not come back to you the next day or the next month, but the good things you do in the world always come back to you. I'm a great believer in that.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, we have surprisingly reached the end, not surprisingly, actually, because this has just been a wonderful chat. We have reached the end of our 30 minutes together. I wonder if you would like to just maybe sum up or give us a final word of wisdom on our topic today.
Yes, certainly. Before I do, to those of you who have put comments and chats, if I haven't answered it, please send me a voice note or send me a message on LinkedIn. I will happily reply to you, like Justin and people like that. No problem at all. I'll happily do that. So my advice is that, you know, being a top voice is wonderful. It did open a few doors for me. It also causes the stress. I always say, you know, being a top voice is like going viral. It sounds wonderful and it is very nice. But after a while, it gets to be hard work. And you get animosity from other people and people want free stuff from you. And, you know, for me, success isn't winning an award, even though it's very nice to win an award. Don't get me wrong. It's lovely to win an award. But for me, success is how you treat other people. For me, success is how you help people when nobody else is looking. And that's what we should be striving towards rather than trying to get more followers on LinkedIn.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you for being here today, Niraj. Thank you for everybody who has joined in, listening in, watching, etc. And thank you so much. And we'll be back here next week with another LinkedIn Live. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much, Gillian.
Bye-bye.